From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for the MTN News at 9. I'm Russ Riesinger. Thousands of flags blanketed the National Mall in Washington, D.C. today, honoring the 200,000 Americans who've died from the coronavirus. The U.S. hit that grim milestone today. Laura Podesta has more.
Each one of the 20,000 flags near the Washington Monument represents 10 Americans whose deaths are linked to COVID-19. This morning, there was an interfaith memorial service to mourn the lives lost.
It's almost incomprehensible, the level of anguish. To me, it is also incomprehensible that we have no national plan, no national help for our people.
Dozens of volunteers with the COVID-19 Memorial Project placed these flags one by one last night and this morning. They'll remain here until tomorrow night.
Maybe someday we should even have a permanent memorial for the people who lost their lives to COVID.
Nationwide, the average rate of new coronavirus cases has increased to roughly 40,000 per day. Ricardo Aguirre from Phoenix survived his infection, but lost 9 members of his family.
All I know is that my mother's the one that started having the symptoms first. And from there, it was my dad, myself, my wife, my 2 kids, and then my brother.
On Friday, the CDC published a change on its website, announcing that in addition to the virus spreading through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person sneezes or coughs, another way the virus can spread is through aerosols, tiny particles from breathing and talking that can linger in the air longer. But Monday, the federal agency removed the change, saying it was posted by mistake.
I think that there needs to be a conversation whenever there's a change. Explain it in detail because there are a lot of policy implications for changing that guidance.
Dr. David Agus says the guidance put out Friday could have led to requirements for better ventilation systems in hospitals, schools, restaurants, and all indoor spaces. Laura Podesta, CBS News, Washington.
Well, Dr. Agus also says masks are the best line of defense for both droplets and aerosols. In an email to CBS News, a CDC spokesperson says aerosol transmission is possible, but not the main way that the coronavirus spreads. Meanwhile, here in Montana, 4 more COVID-related deaths, 275 new confirmed active cases reported today. The total deaths have now reached 164. 2 of the latest victims, men in their 70s, residents from 2 different senior living facilities here in Yellowstone County. The 3rd victim from Rosebud County, and the 4th victim, a Bighorn County man in his 70s. Today's jump in active cases is the 2nd largest since the pandemic began. The biggest hit today reported in Cascade County. It added 59 new cases to reach 337 active. Yellowstone County still has the most cases, 802. Well, state health experts joined Governor Steve Bullock today to address the jump in cases. MTN's John Riley has more.
Montana has seen a sizable increase in average daily COVID cases since July, with more than 270 new cases in 2 out of the last 4 days.
From mid-July to early September, our weekly number of cases stabilized. Unfortunately, that stability was at about 800 per week. So just over the 2 months where we were stable, Montana added about 70% of the 10,000 cases that we've experienced.
The state has attributed a lot of the recent cases to congregate settings like schools, jails, and nursing homes, while also citing Labor Day activities and social distancing fatigue as significant contributing factors for many cases. State Medical Officer Dr. Greg Holzman said the increase in number is a troubling trend that will only bring more suffering to Montana families, unless more people begin following COVID guidelines like wearing a mask and limiting social gatherings.
When disease rates rise, we see more suffering, we see more death. We see schools that have to close down, not necessarily because of a health mandate, but because we don't have teachers to teach or students to learn. We can see businesses suffer as people are concerned about going out and acquiring the virus.
Social distancing and masking up has been a unified message by state and county officials for months, yet cases have continued to rise. The White House guidance to Montana this week encouraged fining individuals not following mask guidelines in high COVID positive areas. Bullock says he will not be implementing an action like that.
The directives that we've done at the state level have been by and large applicable to all areas of the state. And local communities and local counties and local public health entities can actually be more restrictive, and we'll support those measures.
Governor Bullock says increasing restrictions or fining people ultimately isn't going to solve this problem. It's going to take Montanans following social distance guidelines, wearing masks, and washing their hands. Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Well, the spike in active numbers also hitting here in Yellowstone County, but county health experts tell Q2 today we need to focus on the bigger picture.
Some of it is, frankly, there's just more disease being spread. And some of it is also, there's been a couple of days where there's been some reporting issues or some instrumentation issues where several days tests were run at once or several days tests were reported at once. That's why it's really important that we not just pay attention to a single day. We obviously have to pay attention to what happens each day, but you need to look at it over time to smooth out those sort of ups and downs that are natural. So Saturday and Sunday counts tend to be low because there's less testing on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, the large case numbers do lead to a very important question when it comes to schools. At what number will they be forced to close? Well, there's no exact number. Felton is focused on 4 measures that will ultimately affect that decision. Those are health care and public health capacity, the age range of cases, case count per 100,000, and test positivity rate.
We did see an increase last week in the proportion of cases that involve people aged 19 and younger. That went from 9% the prior week to 18% last week. It's important to remember that our medical technical team is really looking at this over at least a 14-day period. So a single week isn't going to change the overall status. We're looking for sustained changes.
Felton also notes positive cases are reported to the county where a person lives, not where they're tested. However, he says when it comes to university students, positive cases are reported to the county where the student goes to school. More details released surrounding Monday's fatal shooting in the Billings Heights. Authorities now tell us that 43-year-old Robert Coulter of Roundup was shot multiple times while he was assaulting a 33-year-old woman at a home in the 300 block of Nash Lane. Police say Coulter, who had a relationship with the woman, had apparently strangled, pistol whipped, then tried to kidnap her when a 34-year-old man living in a separate building in the area stepped in. Police say the man shot Coulter multiple times after Coulter put a gun to the woman's head. No arrests have been made. And Lockwood firefighters, along with some assisting rural agencies, put a stop to a brush fire this afternoon before it reached Emerald Hills. That blaze started south of Billings on Interstate 90 near Lockwood. The flames burned west of the roadway along the eastbound lane. So far, no word on what sparked the fire. Well, the smoke in our area isn't just from that fire. It's once again blowing in from the west coast. Bob, at least we caught a brief break this morning.
Yeah, that was kind of nice, but now the smoke is back. Let me show you what it looked like earlier this afternoon. You can see we're looking to the west, not towards Lockwood. And so we had smoke coming in from western part of the United States, Oregon, parts of Northern California. Anyway, that's what it looked like. And as you can see here, our smoke forecast shows you that smoke continues to push its way up into our area as the rest of the night goes on. And then we think maybe sometime tomorrow morning, it looks like the smoke's going to kind of thin out a little bit. And then I think on Thursday, we'll have a little batch of heavier smoke. Then after that, looks like this stuff goes away by the time Friday gets here. We'll head on into Saturday enjoying mostly thin smoke layers at all. So really, actually probably can see a lot of blue sky by the time Saturday gets here. And when it comes to air quality, well, it looks like Billings now is at moderate. That's up from good. So things are kind of get a little bad, but we're still within good guidelines right now. We're basically good to moderate across much of the state. We'll have your forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. A district judge in Montana says he has a lot of work to do, but will reach a decision on all mail ballots as quickly as humanly possible. Judge Dana Christensen heard from attorneys for the Republican Party and the Trump campaign today who accused Governor Bullock of creating chaos on the eve of the election. Attorneys for the state say the GOP is throwing county election officials a curve and show no evidence that mail balloting will lead to fraud. 46 of Montana's counties plan to run the election through the mail, but every county will offer a way for people to vote in person. Now, if you want your vote to count, here's a quick rundown of what you need to know. In Montana, you cannot register to vote online. You must fill out an application, either mail it in or take it down to the county elections office. In Yellowstone County, the elections office will move to Metro Park starting October 2nd. The general election is all mail for Yellowstone County residents this year, and those ballots will be mailed out on October 9th. But if you want to vote in person, early voting starts October 2nd at Metro Park. If you're sending in your registration, you need to get that in by October 26th. After that, you must deliver your registration form in person in order to receive a ballot. As with previous all-mail elections this year, once you have your ballot filled out, you can drop it off to be counted at the elections office. To see if you're registered or change your mail ballot address, visit the Montana My Voter page on the Secretary of State's website. And of course, all eyes will be on the vote count Tuesday, November 3rd. In Montana's race for governor, Republican Greg Gianforte has outspent Democrat Mike Cooney by a 3-to-1 margin, thanks in part to $3.5 million that Gianforte has pulled from his own pocket. But the candidates aren't the only ones spending money on this pivotal race. As MTN chief political reporter Mike Dennison tells us, outside spending by various groups will likely approach $20 million by Election Day.
Democrat Mike Cooney has spent about $2 million on his campaign so far, compared to $6.4 million for Republican Greg Gianforte. But Cooney is getting considerable assistance from outside groups. Chief among them is a group called Good Jobs MT, a political action committee financed primarily by the Democratic Governors Association. It had spent $4.3 million through the end of August and has spent or booked another $3.5 million in TV ad time through October. Some of that money has assisted other groups helping Cooney, like the Montana 55 Plus Action Fund and the Montana Conservation Voters Action Fund, which has added another $560,000 of its own spending. And the labor union representing public school teachers and other public employees, the Montana Federation of Public Employees, has spent $2.23 million on ads going after Gianforte or otherwise aiding Cooney. All told, these outside groups are on tap to spend about $11 million on Cooney's behalf in the campaign. On the other side, there is RGA Right Direction PAC, which is financed by the Republican Governors Association. It says it has spent about $4.5 million on Gianforte's behalf, primarily on TV ads attacking Cooney, and has reserved another $3.75 million in TV time through October. That's $8.25 million of outside money helping Gianforte's campaign. So when you add it all together, including the candidate spending, Gianforte still has the edge, but not by much, sort of like the race itself, which is still considered the only closely competitive governor's race in the nation. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Most Montana voters will start getting their ballots in the mail in less than 3 weeks, starting the weekend after October 9th. Still ahead on the MTN 9 o'clock news, we look into what went wrong at one Montana long-term care facility, resulting in double-digit deaths. But first, we're going to go back to Bob McGuire with your full 7-day forecast.